Holy cow, Kenyan man offers Obama livestock for his daughter's hand in marriage. At what cost? The real impact of the political stalemate in the Senate. And too big for boob. At what age should women stop breastfeeding their kids? Hello and welcome to Backlash, the show where opinions matter the most and controversy is king. And with me in the studio every week are the women who say it how it is. Of course, the lovely Rendezvous editor Sarah Lamarquand and news.com.au's Melissa Hoyer. Ladies, a very warm welcome to you both.
Hi.
This week's first topic is an interesting one indeed, and a Kenyan lawyer has reportedly offered US President Barack Obama 50 cows, 70 sheep and 30 goats for his 16-year-old daughter Malia's hand in marriage. Felix Caprono says he's always dreamed of marrying the first daughter and originally took a liking to Obama's youngest back in 2008. As you can see from this picture, she was but a mere child, just 10 years old. Caprono says he's been faithful to her ever since and has had help from his family to raise the dowry. That livestock dowry we are, of course, talking about. He's also said that as a couple, he and the young Obama girl would lead a simple life. Now, while this man had the decency to at least wait until Malia was, well, legal in this day and age, is it realistic that an educated Western woman from a first world nation, not to mention the daughter of the world's most powerful man, be traded like a commodity in order to fulfill the dreams of a man and live a simple life well below her capabilities and experience, Sarah?
I would hope that no girl anywhere in the world is ever made to feel that she should be traded like a commodity and that her value is measured by what can be delivered to her father. I realise obviously I'm coming at this from a very Western perspective, but I think women's rights are human rights, and I don't think that a young woman from any part of the world, regardless of whether her father happens to be the leader of the free world or runs a dry cleaning business, should be traded like this. I mean, it's easy to joke about this story. I thought, 30 goats, that's just what you need in the White House. I'm sure that'll close the deal for this man, but it really is a serious issue, and I think the Obamas are probably fairly down to earth in their own way. I think that they'd probably be quite happy for their daughter when she grows up several years from now to find someone maybe from a working class background. I don't think they'd have any issues with that. She just won't be able to, he won't be able to work in a fast food store because Michelle Obama has very strong feelings about that.
Yes, indeed. Well, if you do take away the fact that the targeted bride in question is the US President's daughter, which in itself is a totally delusional request from the suitor, but if you take that fact away, Felix Caprono isn't actually doing anything out of the ordinary. For years, from a cultural, religious and economic point of view, dowries have been offered to a potential bride or groom's family for their respective hands in marriage. In many cultures, clearly, it still takes place. While we sit aghast and shocked at such a request, and as Sarah said, from a Western point of view, as educated women, are we sometimes too quick to judge the actions of others in less fortunate societies? Should we be more tolerant of what's been tradition for years, Mel?
Well, I think as Sarah said, sure, this is a cultural thing. This is something that does happen certainly in countries we would hope well away from where we are, here in Australia. It does happen. Sure, tolerance is something we all want to be. It's something that we all aspire to be, but there will be, and there are countries and there are cultures that will not change. This will be a thing, the fact that dowries like this do exist, which in our mind is a concept that is just totally ridiculous, but we do have to accept that this does exist. So it's all good for us to say, isn't this funny? As if we do this. We won't do it, but there are countries that do and will and continue to. But I don't think there's ever going to be a chance that one of the Obama girls, even though he will be out of a job fairly soon, prayers, I don't think it's going to happen. But yeah, we do have to accept it, but it's certainly not something that we, as Western cultured people, want to see.
All right, our next topic now, and it's been 2 weeks since the government handed down its second federal budget after what was a widely unpopular and austere budget last year. This year's cash splash has put Tony Abbott back in the good books with voters. While Treasurer Joe Hockey wants to reward small businesses with instant deductible claims and encourage women back into the workforce by offering childcare incentives, Labor analysis out this week shows low-income families will be almost $20,000 worse off over 4 years, while middle-income families will only be $11,500 worse off. Now, while this sounds like a raw deal for the poor, at least we have a reasonably solid welfare system in place. I guess what I'm trying to get at is, isn't it time that we all just be grateful for what we've got? Sure, some people get dealt a rough hand, but generally Australia's in a pretty good place. Is it time we all stop thinking about what we as individuals get out of the budget and start passing these measures through the Senate so we can actually set Australia up financially for the future, Sarah?
Yes, I think there is an increasing sense of what's in it for me that we've seen creeping into the Australian political dialogue in recent years. And when the budget is handed down, increasingly we see people go, well, I don't have children, why should I be paying for this? Or I'm not elderly, so why should I be paying for that? And it's very mean-spirited and short-sighted. And if you play that game, no one will ever get anything done. This government's now been in power for over 18 months. Whatever you think of them, you have your chance to either vote for them again or vote against them in another 18 months' time. I think they should be allowed to cash in the mandate that they got at the end of 2013 and make some tough decisions. The Senate is there as a house of review, and they rightfully have to make sure that people that can't speak for themselves are represented in Parliament. But I absolutely agree, this really cheap political point scoring, it's not really getting anyone far. We need to see our leaders take some tough decisions.
All right, another issue that has arisen from this year's budget is the role of women when it comes to increasing the nation's productivity and wealth for the long term. Now, while all of the rhetoric surrounding women returning to work post-childbirth has centred around what the politicians, workplaces, childcare facilitators and general public thinks, at no point have I seen anything written from a child's perspective. While most kids don't form memory before the age of 3 and those from 3 to 5 are pretty vague, shouldn't we all just stop for a minute and consider the child's needs and even their wants? I mean, Mel, what do you think of that?
Yeah, obviously 1 to 5, you've got children who really don't have a recall of that time. But I think as parents, you can tell that you're hopefully doing as good a job, and as particularly as working parents, at doing as good a job of being a parent as you can. Also, when you are a working parent, your kids see you in that situation. They actually don't know anything else. I mean, I've got one son, you've both got 2 kids each. They see you working. That is just part of our life. I think we can't sort of over amplify it too much and make out that what I'm doing for you kids, it's taking me away from you. Yes, of course, us being out of the home and doing our work is taking us away from time spent from our kids. But then when we are with our kids, you want to make that time the best time ever. So I love the fact that my son sees me working. He understands that I have to do it. It is our means to our ends. It pays his school fees. It pays for that house we live in. It pays for the food on the table. So, I think we just have to do it in a very simplistic way and teach our kids that working is good. It is something that you can enjoy and couple it properly with good parenting.
Does it put pressure on the women who don't want to work?
Well, it does, but I agree with what Melissa said. I think we need to change the focus. I think most parents have their child's best interests at heart. And I think when you rightfully ask, where are the children in this? Absolutely. But as a mum, I think the children are at the forefront of it. And I think most dads would say that too. But I don't think that should come at the expense of our individual decisions. So I really agree with what Melissa said. And I certainly don't want women that don't work to be made to feel that they're inferior, but they're not being judged the same way that working mothers are, and working fathers don't deal with this judgment. So I really agree. I think everyone just get on with it, have a life, as the saying says, and then be there for your kids, and they will grow up, and if they see mum or dad happy, that's probably the best gift you can give them.
You don't see the working dads headlines. It's always, working mums, working mums, working mums. Do you see working fathers? No,
never,
we don't see it.
All right, our last topic of the week now, and a Byron Bay mother who proudly and openly breastfeeds her school-aged daughter has made headlines this week and will appear on the Discovery Channel in an extreme breastfeeding series. Maha Al-Musa, who's 52 years old and who follows a strict paleo diet, of course, has been pictured and features in a women's magazine openly feeding her 6-year-old daughter, who she hasn't immunised, in a park. In February, she even created a meme of herself breastfeeding her daughter, which says, "I breastfeed my child, 6 and over, this is normal." Well, according to World Health Organization, and I quote, exclusive breastfeeding is recommended up to 6 months of age, with continued breastfeeding along with appropriate complementary foods up to 2 years of age or beyond. As you can see, this is open to interpretation. So just how old is too old to be publicly feeding your child, especially where, everyone can see, Sarah?
Look, I personally subscribe to that old line that if they're old enough to ask for it, then they're probably too old to be breastfeeding. And if they're saying, okay, now I'd like a sandwich, thanks mum, then probably let's just go straight to the sandwich and skip the boob. But there's so much judgment surrounding breastfeeding. Any woman or partner of anyone who's gone through those early months knows that they call them the nipple Nazis. And if you don't breastfeed for a certain time, you're certainly made to feel like you're an inferior mother. And so I don't want to feed into, no pun intended, to that judgment by criticising this mother. I'm sure she's got her daughter's best interests at heart. If she did, of course, she should also be immunising her. I can't fail to point out that contradiction.
Well, that goes to my next point. Maha Al-Musa says breastfeeding a child is healthy, so is immunising children, as Sarah just said, against life-threatening diseases. Now, her child hasn't been vaccinated, call me a dumb blonde, but yeah, it's contradictory. And what she's saying is kind of a contrast. She's sort of going for what may be fashionable or cool at the same time. To me, it doesn't seem like that's her overall arching value.
Yeah. The boob thing, the breastfeeding thing sort of pales into the fact about about this child not being immunised. Again, the judgments, the judgmental of us out there will be saying, "Oh, it's awful. I don't want to see this woman breastfeeding her 6-year-old." There are a lot of people who obviously will think like that, but it is her choice to be doing this. There's not really much more to say than that. It's not my choice. It may not be many of your choices as well, but I think we are so quick to judge, and particularly media commentators, journalists, all of us in the media, we all judge. We've all got our social media platforms. You can't do this, you can't look like that, you can't breastfeed. If it is her choice to do it, go and do it, not mine. Good luck to her.
Does it go beyond just her when, for example, one of our children would have seen that in a park and came home to us and asked, "Well, Mummy, why can't I have milk from your breast?"
Good luck to my boys if they ask that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll give them a fairly frank answer.
Yeah, I think my 13-year-old would just be plainly disgusted.
And then you have to explain why not. But anyway, let us move on.
That's another thing.
Before we end up, let's take a quick look at this week's shock frock, and maybe the Cannes Film Festival should have banned candy-striped jumpsuits rather than flat shoes. What do you think, ladies?
Oh yeah, candy stripe. Leave it to the the 5-year-old girl's birthday party, or maybe walking into a barber shop. But no, it's funny because Cannes this year, everyone looks so
nice.
Fantastic.
Yes.
But, you need one.
That was a struggle to find a shock frock this week.
I'm
Really?
glad,
Oh,
yeah.
that's a good sign. She looks like a lollipop.
That's right.
Or in pyjamas or something.
Yes.
In a bit of a licorice
Pajamas.
sort, but in a very nice, tasteful way.
That sort of sounds quite inviting.
Oh yeah, okay. Let's
Time
move on.
for time. That's all we have time for. More backlash next week. You got me speechless.
Good.